Hey, what's up guys? This is Cameron here from Witness RC, back with another video on my 22X4 Elite. In this video, I'm going to go over the electronics that I put in this thing, as well as how I feel how it drives after running it a few times. So to get right into it, just get this thing off there. So I kind of mentioned what I was going to run in my last video, and I essentially went with that. I'm running the Trinity 5600 white carbon battery, my favorite line of batteries. I think most people are pretty familiar with this line. They're top tier level batteries, awesome burst. I mentioned them in my two-wheel drive video as well. I just love the batteries. I mean, everyone runs these for a good reason. As far as motor, I am running the Tekin 13.5 motor here. There's the Gen 4 Spec R. These motors are awesome. I run the same motor, the same version of motor in my two-wheel drive. They are super low temp. They're very quiet, very powerful motors. I love them. I also have the Protect. You see here the Protect fan in the rear mount option. These fans are super loud, but they throw off some pretty good air, and they seem to do a good job. So, highly recommended. As far as ESC, I have the Hobbywing XR10 Pro Midnight Silver Edition. Pretty cool, pretty sweet looking ESC. Again, very powerful. The thing that really stood out for me on this ESC was how good the braking is. I mean, this thing brakes hard. The Tekin that I have in my two-wheel drive is the brakes are pretty good as well, but these are just next level. I mean, I'm talking instant brakes, even on like not even max settings. So, very satisfied with this ESC. There is something I do want to talk about a little bit later as far as issues I had with it. So I will get into that a little bit later. I am running the Futaba, what is it, the R304 SBE, which is the internal antenna version. It's the same receiver I run in my other car as well. I'm running the Futaba 4PM radio. And then up front here I have the Protect 160T, and you can't really see it because there's a mount over it, but it's a great servo. It was actually on sale. AMN had a sale on them. So it basically was the same price as a 140T. And it's a much more powerful version. And I think for a four-wheel drive, it's worth having that little bit more power up front in your steering. And then you can't really see it here, but I have the MyLapse. This is like the Pro transponder. It's kind of tucked back in there. But I like that one because it's all black and it has the wiring, just a single color wiring as opposed to the red and white long clunky cables. And as last time I'm running right now, I'm running the Positron and Electron combo, dirt combo. These are still basically brand new tires. I have ran the car twice, but very lightly. So still breaking those in. Other than that, that is the car. I'm running a 25 tooth pinion right now with just the stock setup. I'm probably going to start playing with that maybe next time I head out to the track. It's tough because this thing is a rocket, but I don't really know if it's... I'll try to play with it and kind of see how it goes. But for right now, I'm just running that kind of the stock recommended gearing setup as well. So getting to how it drives. The first time I drove it, it was basically stock. I think it was 100% stock. And it was literally day one of the new track layout. So the track was not in great condition for high speed runs, speed laps to begin with, on top of my skill level. So I was taking it very easy, just trying to get the car broken in, get kind of used to it. But even with that, I could just tell this thing was an absolute monster. Super quick, super grounded, just powers through corners. This thing is awesome. It's very fast. I think the biggest thing I noticed was just how more responsive it feels than the two-wheel drive. Not in the sense of, it was like response times, but more in the sense of how quickly it hooks up to, when you give it some juice. However, when I was running it the first time, there was an extremely loud, high-pitched whine. That was pretty concerning. So I didn't want to run it too hard, too much. So I ended up, just running my two-wheel drive for the most part. But, so I was trying to diagnose what the sound was. I thought it was a center diff at one point. So I rebuilt all three diffs multiple times. Didn't seem to fix the problem. So I had my dad look at it, and he built his kit simultaneously. So he had his parts kind of available. We ended up switching diffs to try his, and his had the plastic gears at the time. Mine were still the metal gears, um, and it had the same issue. So anyway, we couldn't figure it out. So we went to the track. We even put the slipper in there, and it didn't do it. It was the same issue, same problem. So we took it to the guy at the that runs the hobby shop, and he knew right away. We didn't even turn it on to show him the sound. It's something with the ESC, the settings. So he said it was some sort of frequency setting is set to 1K. He put it to I believe 2K, and it instantly fixed it. So I don't know what that. He said it was a very common issue with this particular one. My dad has the exact same ESC, and his didn't do it. So I don't know what um, the rate is of it, but for whatever reason, this thing was just howling. He changed that frequency to 2K as opposed to 1, and it was fixed just like that. So something to keep in mind if you do get this ESC, that's something maybe to consider. It's ran perfectly before and after. It wasn't like, from what I could tell, it wasn't impacting the performance. It was just a super loud noise. So it kind of sucked to find out that after all the work trying to figure, rebuilding it, it was just a simple setting that took a guy 10 seconds to fix. But I did definitely fix that. Now, as I rebuilt the diffs, I ended up putting in the plastic ones. If you're going to build this kit, I would highly recommend, I'll see if I can get the part number, 332084. And these are the composite gear, internal gear for the diffs. So the second time I ran it with the spur and pinions and plastic gear diffs. And I noticed it's hard to tell for sure because I was driving it pretty easy the first time, but the car seemed much more agile and much more responsive. The second time around, with those the plastic gears inside it, I mean it's much lighter, significantly lighter. I think like each one is like 6 or 7 grams lighter. So when you have all three diffs, that's a lot of weight on your drive shafts getting removed. So I would highly recommend, if you're gonna build this kit, guys, and you're gonna run stock, I would highly recommend just getting these. I think they're like $12 a piece, and you need 3 of these and 2 sets of these spurs and pinions. And I think those are about the same price. So it's something to consider. I wish I would have done it just right off the bat instead of having to rebuild it and take it apart. It wasn't too bad, but it's just one of those things. If you're going to run stock, I would just go ahead and do it off the rip. And if you switch to mod, obviously you're probably going to want to run the aluminum ones or the metal ones, whatever they are. So the second time I ran it, it was man, this thing, guys, it's fast. It is super fast. You just send it around corners. It just powers through. I was very impressed with how it drove. I struggled with the aerial control between this and my 2-wheel drive. I felt like this one was a little bit harder to control in there just because you have so much more power on like the jumps. My 2-wheel drive, obviously a lot of it's gonna have to do with just how much you drive it. But the 2-wheel drive is just, you can kind of give it some gas on the jump and you kind of know what to expect. With this, if you get a little bit of juice on the jump, it's going to take all of that, and it's just going to launch it. And my track has 2 jumps in the current layout. One's a pretty big one, and one's kind of just a small, like, skip jump. That's not much of an issue. But the big jump, I was having a really hard time overshooting it. And I actually ended up overshooting it way too far and hit, like, a wall, essentially. And what happened was this front shock tower, I must have impacted straight on here, and it just ripped through this diff housing. It just completely took it off. So the shock tower just like flopping around, and it was actually underneath the front of the chassis. So I thought it was like going to be a super expensive like brake. It ended up only being this little casing. I think it was like a $10 piece, but to get it on there, you had to take literally apart the whole front end. So it sucked. But obviously that's not a car issue. That's just a bad crash, bad driving. But that was really the only thing I broke, I think, that I can remember. I did break my wing. I had the cheap Proline lightweight wing. That was to be expected. Those things just right at the connection here just rips through the cheap not cheap, but the thin plastic. And I broke that pretty much right off the bat. which I expected. But other than that, the car held up great. I'm very happy with the stuff I put in here. I mean, it's pretty tried and true teak and hobby wing. You can't really go wrong. Uh, it's kind of my go-to right now, and I don't really see that changing. I think they're both, well-priced products, and they're great performance. So I would highly recommend this setup to anybody. As far as the car, I still have high thoughts on it. It's obviously very, very fast. I got to get better with it, of course, and that's going to take some time, but you can definitely feel the potential in this thing. Uh, I had a nice stretch where probably 6 or 7 laps in a row, it was just personal best, personal best. I was getting faster every lap, and you can definitely tell this car you have way higher potential. Like this car is not going to be holding your times back. You can always do more with this thing. So again, highly recommend it. Um, Very fun build, and the electronics, I'm very happy with them. So um, get the the gears if you think you're going to run stock, and that way, I mean, if you don't replace it right away, if something breaks or you need to rebuild them at some point, just switch them out then. I think it's highly worth the upgrade, even though it's I wasn't even driving it hard. I could feel that difference. It felt lighter, it felt more nimble, and I think over the long haul, especially, it's going to be better. You're just gonna want that in there. So all right, guys, thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good day. Any questions or whatever, let me know in the comments. Peace.